boys. Welcome back to the Group X podcast for the fourth time. How are you?
Good, thanks, Tony. How are you?
Yeah, mate. Good. Sam?
Fantastic. Like the fantastic.
Like this. I like this. So, boys, we have gone over the first four keys. Today we're going into 5 and 6, being play your A team and build a great stadium. So let's kick it off. Actually, before we do, what I need people to do is like and subscribe to make sure that this video actually gets out to more and more people. So everyone's going to be watching it on YouTube, aren't you? They're all just nodded at me or they've just said yes. I want you to jump on. If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, sign up to the website and like the video and share it if you can as well. So, right. All that's done. Let's get into this.
Tony, so you can go on the website.
The website is 100% free to sign up to. Yep. And I should let everybody know here as well that we're no longer doing podcasts. It's only going to be vodcasts. So you won't be able to find any of this content on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from anymore. It'll only be through the website. So coming back to the website, signing up as it is for free, you'll be able to access everything through the website to see what's going on and everything there, keeping it a bit safer and a bit more controlled for everybody. So, play your A team, key number 5. Dan, I'm going to start with you on this one. Can you give us a bit of an overview on what play your A team is all about?
Yeah, so it sort of says what it does on the tin, right? It's about playing your best players, just like a football team or a soccer team or whatever sport you follow here. Playing your best team. So it's obviously ties in with the previous key plays about creating a great team and creating rock star instructors. So obviously, the bigger your pool of A team players you've got, the more variety, the more opportunity you've got. But essentially it boils down to, recognizing your staff, your instructors, that do a great job, that draw big crowds, that, drive that big attendance in their classes and using that, leveraging off that, those instructors as much as you can to maximize your attendance to a class or to your timetable.
Sweet. Sam, have you got anything to add to that?
I think Dan said it exactly the way it is. It really is making sure that the people that you have in front of your members are delivering the best experience for them. And I think just, I will add to that. With your A team doesn't have to be the absolute cream of the crop on your timetable either. It's really being able to understand. Well, I think everyone on your timetable would be cream of the crop, to be honest. But it's about having people on your timetable that work with the people that are in the club at that time or the people that you're trying to attract into the club at that time.
So, Sam, let me throw this one over to you then. We've set our goals. We're now talking about how we get our A team on. What are the things that we need to look out for? And I suppose what's the first step that we do in order to get this moving in the right direction?
So from research and experience, what we know is there's sort of 3 main key things that we look for or that our participants look for in a class. So first is the type of class. So what type of class is on the timetable? The second is the time of the class, or the time of day, morning, afternoon, mid-morning. And the third, which is actually probably the most important in that hierarchy, is the ability and the personality of the instructor. So we know that a great instructor can draw a lot of people into that short space of time. So we want to make sure that those 3 things are in check. And obviously now we're going to focus on the instructor, so playing the A team.
Yep. So looking at that then, we're saying we're going to play the instructor. Does that mean you give your most popular instructor more classes, Dan?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. Obviously identifying who your most popular instructors are, and they will be different depending on, as Sam alluded to, the different time of the day, the different program types. So it's not giving 1 or 2 instructors the lion's share all the classes on the timetable. Obviously not. What you ideally want to do actually is have your entire team as the A team. So there is no challenge around having one instructor teach or two instructors teaching the lion's share of your class time slots. So identifying, as Sam said, who those instructors are and where they work best on the timetable and what programs that they draw a big crowd, because you might have a situation where an instructor is super popular in program A, but perhaps there's another instructor that's even more popular in program B. So, this is not program specific. This is really just identifying where does your talent lie and where can it be best used over the week of your timetable.
Okay, so we're not saying that I've got instructor A who's amazing at pump and instructor B who's amazing at RPM, and they're the only two instructors I'm going to throw on the timetable to teach every single class Monday to Sunday on the timetable. That's all right?
Well, I definitely hope not, because they're going to be bloody tired by the end of the week if they're teaching everything on the timetable. I mean, as I said, it ties in with setting the goal, setting the plan, setting a great training program. So you've got a big pool of instructors that can all support one another, and you as the GXM or the club manager to provide a great experience for members every class.
Yep. So Sam, let me ask you this question then: how do we gauge our best instructor? How do we gauge the most popular instructor? Is it an instructor that teaches Monday night 5:30 that we know is virtually going to be a packed room anyway? Do we say that they're the most popular instructor? How do we work that out?
Well, it's a really interesting line to draw because it is going to be different from club to club. I will start by prefacing this with, I believe, and in my experience, you want to be taking your instructors from where they are to where they want to be, and that's where the goal setting piece comes into play, understanding what the instructor wants and where they need to be or where they want to be. But you can kind of probably start by putting your team into a couple of columns. So you're always going to have you always want to have those great rock star instructors that that no matter what time of day that you put them on, they're going to draw in a crowd. Then you're going to have your second column, which is your development team. So they're the team players that will already have many strengths and may have some opportunities to work on that will take them from where they are now to be one of those rock star instructors. So ideally, if you are great with your training program and if you are great at identifying the strengths and opportunities for your team, you'll actually be able to develop more of those rock star instructors. And let's be honest, you have to start somewhere, right? You're not always going to, I'm sure I might have thought I was a rock star when I first started teaching, but certainly where I was to where I am now is very different.
Yep. Dan, isn't it going to cause burnout though for instructors? And we had a bit of a chuckle there. All of us did, before when I said that, Tony's going to be on every single class. If we're still putting on our best performers more often, isn't that going to assist and push, I suppose, that burnout effect on that instructor? And, after 2 weeks, they're going to be like, dude, I can't teach that many. I'm going to have to get class covers all the time.
Yep, that's absolutely a risk, which is why we work with clubs to make sure that they've got a pool of great instructors rather than relying on one or two people to cover the whole timetable. So I think you've got to identify that. You've got to identify what's a realistic number of classes that any one instructor could or should be expected to teach, and bearing in mind that quite often is not completely aligned with what the instructor themselves want to teach. I've dealt with instructors who want to teach 20 classes a week and others that want one or two, and it's trying to find that balance of what's a good number that suits the instructor, but also more importantly, where does that fit into your timetable? So this is definitely not about having one or two instructors that just teach all of your classes on the timetable. That's not sustainable in the long term. It's not sustainable for the club because that one or two instructors get injured, fall pregnant, move away, go on holidays, whatever it might be. Then all of a sudden you've got a huge gaping hole in your timetable that you're struggling to fill. So it's really about putting all the key players that we've already talked about together and that will support you in growing that pool of great instructors.
Matching the best gyms and studios with the best group exercise instructors. If you want to get your classes covered or want to teach more and earn more, Simply let the Cover Me app do the work. No more WhatsApp groups and social media groups, no more chasing, only relevant, personalized notifications. Just check in at a club, an invoice will be automatically generated, ready for you to get paid. It takes just a couple of minutes to create a Cover Me professional profile. So, raise your profile and raise your game. Cover Me. Let's make it happen.
So we were saying earlier on that, looking at the program and making sure you're putting your best instructor on and your most popular program or your most popular instructor on. What about other programs? Like, we're going to just throw pump and say attack on every single time. What about the other programs that we've got on offer? Shouldn't we also be looking to cater for everybody on the timetable as well, Sam?
Yeah, and we have a number of strategies that we work through with clubs to make sure that the programming suits all the different genres that we offer, all the different elements of fitness that we offer, which certainly we take our club partners through at least once a year just to see where their timetable's at. If you've got a good plan for your club, you're going to have opportunities during the year where you can refine and change that timetable, because what we know is, if we're just talking about programming at the moment, we know that there are different seasons across the year, so different popularity across the year, but also you do have to sometimes play with finer tweaks to get your timetable right to suit the people in your club. So we have a number of different resources that we use when we take clubs through, but essentially we want to make sure that there is, like you say, variety on the timetable. So use our programs, for example, like let's use body pump and body attack as an example. At 5:30 every day, you don't want to have body pump at 5:30. That might be really popular. However, what that's going to do is you're going to be catering to the 30 or 40 people that enjoy body pump. You're not providing an opportunity for cross training for those people. So what we know from in just general training, like for training in general, strength training is a really great way to change your fitness. However, we know that a mixture of cardio and strength will give our members better results. So that's where we use what we call horizontal scheduling to make sure that we've got a blend of strength, cardio, core, and flexibility on the timetable. When it comes to the instructor that leads those classes, of course, you're going to have instructors who are much better at certain programs than they are other programs, and that's totally cool. It's about creating variety so that, number one, you've got a variety for your members, because I know for a fact that if I taught every single like if we had a 5:30 body pump on every day and I taught that same body pump, that members will probably get sick of me after a little while, because they're just getting the one style, the one flavor of instructor. Where you want to make sure that, again, you've got variety for both your programming and your instructors as well.
If I can just add to that too, Tony. So over years of research, we know that 84% of your attendances go to essentially 6 or 7 key genres, and I've actually written them down so I don't miss any. So the key genres are your program, your key program types, if you like, throughout the week, and the 7 programs are or genres are strength, cycle, dance, mind, body, martial arts, core, and obviously HIIT training. HIIT training can be encompassed in a lot of those already. So 84. So you just got to think about that. 84% of your attendance to group fitness will come from one of those 7 core genres on your timetable. So looking at, are you offering all of those genres on your timetable? If not, where is the shortfall? Where could you improve your timetable? And then obviously, once you've got those core genres all locked into your timetable, then you start to look at where am I best using each instructor across the day, across the week.
Yeah. So let me just throw this at you then. I'm a brand new club that's just opened up, and looking at the genres you've just spoken about then, how do I know what I need to put on? You know, if I've never, it's a brand new gym that's open, you know, and we don't know right now how many members we're going to be getting through, how often, anything like that. What do I throw on the timetable, and how do I do it? Do I just, you know, throw it out there and say, hey, instructors who can teach, and then, you know, Joe says that Joe can teach at 5:15 on a Monday. Cool, we'll put a 5:15 class on a Monday, but on a Tuesday, Felicity says she can't teach till 5:30. So do we put a 5:30 on a different program? How do I suppose the question I'm asking is for new clubs, how do they know what to do? Because there's really no cookie cutter approach to it, is there? Sam?
When you first start a club, you go through a pre-sales process. So I guess the first step that I would be taking is identifying through that sales process when they do sign up, when they're actually going to be wanting to train, because that's going to be a really important factor as you build your timetable. Should you have 1,000 different types of time slots, a 5:10, a 5:20, a 5:25, a 6:25? Maybe, but probably not, because it becomes your timetable will go from being a grid of, you know, a page to 10 pages long just to fit all these time slots in. And I think members, when they train, they form little exercise habits or routines, and we want to make sure that the routine is fairly consistent. Unless you're a shift worker, most of your hours probably may generally be sort of pretty similar across the week. So we want to make sure that we're feeding into the members' needs, but also not providing too much choice, because I think too much choice is just, it's too challenging to be able to go, I want to train at this time, because you're like, well, today I'm going to train at 5:10, but tomorrow I'm going to train at 6:40, and, you know, it's just too all over the shop. So I think probably two factors. Number one, what do your members want? And number two, what's going to create the most consistency so that we can make exercise a staple, a pinpoint in their diary every week.
Okay, so pardon me. If I just look at a time as an example, if I just want to, before we go too much into the whole who's going to be teaching in what program, if I look at a club that is, let's say, a CBD place, we know that workers will finish at 5 o'clock, and I'm taking the afternoon as an example here. Workers usually finish at 5, or anywhere between 5 and say 5:15. Would you have a class on right on 5:15, or would you push it out to say 5:30 to make sure that you're going to get the most amount of people coming in to that class of a night time? Dan, what would your suggestion be around that sort of that as an example?
Yeah, it's a good question. It probably comes down to looking at your CRM software to when people are logging into the gym, and most clubs have, you know, really good CRMs that will be able to tell them who's coming and when. So I'd say, again, I mean, it's got to be data based. It's got to be data driven, these decisions, rather than it's too easy to have gut feelings, or, you know, theories, or, you know, the vibes about what's going on. Actually drill down into your data again. So have a look at what your customer relationship manager software is saying. So when are people coming in? Are people coming in at 5:05? In which case, yeah, probably 5:15 is a suitable time, because we don't want people to come in then have to wait around for half an hour, because they're not going to come in, right? They're going to go and do their own thing, or whatever whatever they decide to do. So yeah, look, if you got oodles and oodles of people walking in the door at 5:05 just after knockoff time, because they've just walked down from around the corner, 5:15 might work. But again, it depends on the club. You might see people, they might be working back to 5:30, so they're not coming into the club until, you know, your big membership group isn't coming into the club until 5:40, 5:45, in which case maybe a 6 o'clock work. So it really is looking at your data, understanding your member needs, and building your timetable based on that. But just to take another step, or an add-on step to what Sam talked about, what does the current member want, which is super important. What is your acquisition target audience as well? So that's really important. So you might have members that are coming in at 5:15, so you stick a class on at 5:30 because you know members are going to come. But if you want to attract a different group of people, think uni students, think, you know, workers, tradies, things like that might be knock off at 3:30 and 4. Do you have a strategy, and do you have an offering for those guys as well? So suddenly a 4:15, a 4:30 time slot might be something that you would consider playing around with, because you've got the membership that's coming in at 5:30. You know, you've got time slots to suit those guys. But if you want to draw in a younger crowd, or a different group of people into your gym at a different time, making sure you've got programs obviously critical, and the right time for those people. So the example would be a tradie that finishes at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. Then they're not waiting around to 5:30, right, to go and do a class. They want to be knocked off into the club, do something at 4:15 or 4:30. So, and I think with people working from home and the differences from 2019 and early 2020 to now, people's working habits have changed significantly. So identifying that, okay, a 5:30 or a 5:45 class that worked really, really well in 2019 or 2020 might not be working as well. It's not necessarily an instructor, it's not necessarily the program, maybe it's just the time slot.
And it's okay to change those times?
Absolutely.
If we've got something on the timetable that's 5:15, but actually if we moved it to 5:20, we know it's going to work better. It's okay to do that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, you've got to go with what members, and it comes down to what the member wants, right? The attendance data, the numbers of people coming into your club and where they're going in your club should be driving all these decisions. The instructor, to be fair, is secondary, should be a secondary consideration. You've got to have your members looked after in terms of where they're turning up and when they want to train, and then obviously building your team around that, rather than reverse engineering it and saying, okay, you can teach it, Tony can teach at 5, so we'll stick a class on at 5. That might not be suitable because the members maybe just aren't in the club at that time. So, yeah, it's really focusing your attention and your energy on what the current members and potential future members want as the number one focus. We're a service industry, right? It's got to be based on the member first.
Yeah. So I suppose that where my brain goes with that is for a brand new club that's never done a timetable, never offered anything before, it's brand new. Don't be stuck in your ways. If you need to adjust your time after a period of time, that you start time, then go ahead and do it. Don't. But I think though, for the clubs that have been operating for quite some time, I would say, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, don't send out a membership survey to everybody and then go on the loudest people that have actually spoken up, because that's not going to be really relevant to the data you've actually got, as we're saying, from your CRM at the front of house there. Change it if you need to, but don't just change it willy-nilly just for the sake of changing it. If you've got a 5:30 that works, why would you change it to 5:35? You do not need to. You can keep it at 5:30, but at the same time, don't change it to 5:25.
This is the Group X podcast.
Work it in there. Let me ask this question then. I've got three studios. Yep, I've got a main studio, I've got a cycle studio, I've got a mind body studio. Should all classes be starting at the same time, or should we stagger the start time for those three studios? Sam?
I think just to add to, before I answer that question, to add what you said just previously, when you're speaking about as a brand new club that doesn't really know where to start, if that's you, certainly reach out to us, because this is our bread and butter, right? This is the stuff that we do all the time with clubs. So, creating that initial timetable can be really scary to try and get it off the ground and know exactly what members need. And you can certainly do all the research you want, but we can give you the on the ground experience. Dan and I've and the other BPMs, we've all worked in clubs at some point. We've more than likely been responsible for opening clubs as well, so we can give you the best advice. Now, coming back to the question about should we start at the same time, it does, again, I know we've said this a lot today, but it does depend on your member base, right? I work at a club at the moment, and they love doing doubles. They love doing a cycle double with something else in the main studio. So would I start the two classes at the same time in that regard? No, because I know members want to do doubles. If you've got a member base that you've got a core group of, let's use the mind body studio, for example, you've got a core group of mind body people who will only ever do mind body classes and will very rarely sort of go outside that into a cycle class. That's where those classes can start concurrently or potentially have different staggered times to suit the demographic in the club. Another way you can look at it as well is if you have members that sort of have an inconsistent timetable. So, maybe on a Monday they finish at 6, but on Tuesday they finish at 4. Having those different start times scheduled using that horizontal pattern that we kind of know that works really well could be a great benefit for your club. So I think exploring what you do is really important, and being able to move with the trends of the club is important as well. I think the one thing to consider when you're making changes to a timetable, though, is don't make a change every single week, because you will just lose the members. Set it at a cadence of, if you're going to make a change to the timetable, give them a notice period. At least, I would actually suggest at least 2 to 4 weeks if you're going to make a change to the timetable, because there's nothing going to annoy a member more than if they've got a 5:30 time slot they love to come to, and they rush to get in at 5:30 and the class started 5 minutes ago. How great an experience is that going to be for that member?
Yeah, totally. I think the thought process I had around the 3 different studios was, you'd say we've got 30 bikes in the cycle studio. I can have 50 people in my main studio doing pump at the same time, and then I've got 20 people in the yoga space. I'd like to try and pump my cycle studio first, because I've only got 30 bikes, and I know that I'd like to start that at, say, 5:25, knowing that people can come in, and if that class is chock-a-block full, then they can quickly go upstairs, get rid of their shoes, cycle shoes, put on their normal shoes, jump back in, and they can go and do pump at the same time. Whether it be pump and the other studio starting at the same time, or whether there's still another 5-minute gap, so that people can come in, oh, bugger, I've missed the cycle studio. Oh, bugger, I've missed that one. I can still get in to do that. Or far out, cycle's full, pump's full. Right, the only thing I've got left is Studio 3. I can get in there and do it. To me, I think that works a little bit better than having them all starting at 5:30, because, you've got chaos 5:30, everyone trying to come in. If I take North Sydney Fitness First, where I was for many, many years, what we had to do over lunchtime was stagger that, because we knew that between 12 o'clock and 1:30, we had, there was a good couple of hundred people coming through. And if all classes started at the same time, they all finished at the same time, we only had 12 showers. It was a dead set nightmare. You were lining up for a good 20 minutes afterwards to try and have a shower, and hang on, I've only got an hour for lunch. It took me 5 minutes to get there. I did a 45-minute class. That means I've only got 10 minutes at the end. I can't hang around. I'm going back to work stinky. We had to schedule them and had to strip them and spread them apart in that way. So I think what I'm trying to get is for new clubs, take those things into consideration as well. Have a look at your traffic when you're coming into the gym. And I know that it's hard when you haven't, you're opening up, hey, our open day's on Friday. Yet we've never been open before. But be aware of it. As we're saying, take consideration to your CRM, take consideration to what your members are doing, and be there to have a look at that foot traffic when it's coming in as well. So let's get back onto programs then for a second. We'll just shift it over there. What's the best way to, we're a brand new facility that's never been open before, as in this example. How do I know really what programs I should put on? We sort of touched on it there, but Dan, can you give me a little bit more, give us something with regards to that? What's should I just throw a pump and attack and combat on the whole time? What should I be looking to try and do when we've never done anything before?
Yep. So it's a good question, and it's obviously, as Sam alluded to, putting together a group fitness timetable from scratch is quite a daunting task. You've got the instructor consideration, you've got what a member's needing, budgets, all those sort of things. We would certainly approach it from a point of view, and again, if you contact your local business partnership manager, they can walk you through this step by step, so you're not feeling like this is your only resource to refer back to. But we would sort of talk about a 70-30 split. So that's 70% of your classes being core classes. So what's a core class? It's something that you can hang your hat on in any time slot. It's going to work. Now, from a new club point of view, that might be difficult to identify exactly what your core offering of programs is initially, because it's a little bit untested. But your go-tos are going to be your cycle, they're going to be your strength, some mind, body, some core. Having 4 or 5 core programs that are on your timetable 70% of the time, that's number one. And then obviously your fringe programs, your niche programs. It might be dance, it might be, it just depends on the club. Having that scheduled 30% of the time. So probably the first thing to, again, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. What is your core offering at the club going to be? And then when you know your 3 or 4 or perhaps 5 core programs, core genres that you're going to work with, making sure that that's scheduled 70% of your timetable. And from there, it becomes a lot easier to then add your niche programs and look at, other superfluous programs that you will add value to a member, but perhaps doesn't actually drive a lot of new membership coming in the door.
So you spoke earlier on about categories and their strength and the cycle, the dance and all that kind of stuff. What are the latest trends showing us with those at the moment? Sam, can I ask you that? What would be the first 1, 2, and 3 categories or genres that we should be looking to put on that we know are going to generate the most amount of traffic?
Certainly strength training is huge. The gym floor has never been busier. And we know from the new programs that we've had coming through that strength being a massive focus has been a driver to bring more people into class. So strength training is definitely number 1. 2 and 3, I believe, cardio and core training. Is that right, Dan? I believe that's sort of where it's sitting at the moment.
Look, again, that advice is a little bit generic, isn't it? Because it does depend on the club. Like, the really interesting thing coming out of the 2021 period is mind body became a massive part of people's exercise regime, and that was because people were there less for the aesthetic side of things and more for the mental health benefits. So absolutely, strength is massive, particularly with your younger population, as Sam said. And then obviously you've got your mind body cycle. I mean, cycle training is still one of the most popular types of training you can do. If again, all comes back to that play your A team concept, doesn't it? Like, if you've got great instructors providing a great member experience, any program will work, really. Sorry, Sam.
Is HIIT still up there on the top couple of classes, or is that sort of died down a bit and we're seeing different programs or different genres pop in? Sam?
HIIT's still in the top 10 for training. It's certainly not as high as it used to be. Strength training seems to dominate the global surveys that are done. I think the last survey that was done was as Dan said, I think the Gen Z survey said that, probably the most popular is strength. Certainly in my experience over the last probably 4 years, mental health has certainly shifted up into the hierarchy of this is really important. And for a lot of people now, the aesthetic side of fitness has shifted from the aesthetic to the internal, to the mental health stuff. I think a survey done in 2021 of people that have gone through the pandemic times found that the number 1 of the top 3 mental health strategies, the number 1 was exercise. So for people, I don't think mind body is necessarily the one thing that they turn to anymore. I think exercise in general is something that people turn to. But certainly in my experience, strength training, super popular. Cycle is still super popular if it's given the right energy and effort, like anything. Mind-body programs like Reformer Pilates is huge at the moment. I don't think there's a lot of gyms that aren't offering some sort of Reformer Pilates options. And if not, they're turning to things like shapes that can kind of give you a similar feel without, I guess, having to, if you can't afford Reformer beds, they can be quite expensive. Depending on which one you go for and the quality that you're looking for. So turning to things like mat Pilates and things like shapes has been really popular as well.
What's new in fitness? The Australian fitness industry news and commercial gym equipment suppliers website designed to provide fitness industry professionals with knowledge and information to make better informed business decisions. Let me ask you this. We've got our current membership base. So let's walk away from that gym that's just about to open for a second and go back to a gym that's been open for a while. We have our current member base and they're happy to come in and they're content with their classes. Our classes are getting decent numbers, all that kind of stuff. How do we attract new members? I mean, I think that's $1 million question in itself, but how do we look to attract new members if we've already got a decent following? We're talking about those genres and saying to attract the newer, or they're not newer, but the younger demographic coming in, they're wanting to do a little bit of something different. How do we juggle that on timetable's great currently and it's got good attendance to, well, we know that those members are going to get old and they're going to going to say die, they're going to get old and they're going to stop coming for whatever reason as they get older. Where's that point where you make the adjustment? Where's that point where you need to go, cool, we've had pump on at 5:30 on a Monday for the last 10 years, but all of a sudden those members are starting to dwindle down and the numbers are starting to drop. Is this now the time where I put in strength development? Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes down to programming. People vote with their feet, right? Like if you've got an offering that is attractive to someone, they'll come and participate in it. They'll become a member. So, you can learn big box clubs, which is typically what we're talking to more frequently than not, and obviously your smaller boutiques. But you can really look at what do the boutiques do well. And it's all in their programming. It's all in their social media. There's and they've got captivating instructors and things like that. So where there's no real pinch point at which point you say, right, well, my 5:30 pump class isn't going as well, so I need to look at different programming. You should always be looking at evolving your timetable. So you shouldn't be letting it get to a point where, your pump or RPM or whatever the strength program or whatever it might be is dwindling, that you then are looking at, geez, what do I do here to attract new people? You should be always thinking about, okay, I've got a membership which is really secure. They're regularly participating. It's awesome. Classes are going really well. Now, how do I grow that? How do I grow that opportunity in the business, and where is that opportunity coming from? And the obvious solution is, if you've got an older membership demographic already and they're already super engaged, that's fantastic. Why don't we start looking at where your younger members are coming in? So younger members, we know, are going to boutiques, they're going to CrossFit, they're going to F45s and other boutique type reformer Pilates places and things like that. How do we, as an industry, or a big box, in the big box sense of things, how do we attract those people? So we've got to look at programming, right? We've got to look at creating, and I know we'll move to that shortly, around creating an environment or a room that people want to go and train in, rather than just something that's there because it's there. So I think you should always be looking at those opportunities and always looking to develop your team and your timetable and your club with the view that, yep, I've got a great membership already, but how can we get more members in? How can we get younger members, older members, whatever the audience it is you're targeting? And it obviously is a lot of it will come down to programming. Am I offering programming that's representative of those people that I want to attract?
Yeah. Sam, let me throw this at you then. We've got a pump on a Monday night at 5:30, and I'm currently, we can fit 50 people in the room, and I'm getting somewhere between 35 to 40, if not sometimes even 50 every week. It's Monday night. People are going to come in. But they're all in that age bracket of 30 above. We want to, all of a sudden, we're looking at our members now and realizing that once they get into their 50s or 60s, they're not coming in 3 times a week. They're only coming in 2 times or 1 time a week. We're wanting to try and captivate this younger audience. Can I change that Monday night class from pump to strength development just like that? Or is it something that I should be turning around and advertising and saying, hey, we're going to give this a shot. So we're going to give the current members something different to do, plus also open it up. So we're advertising for new members or potential people to come in to trial it. Is that something that's even worth doing these days? Or do we just go, you know what, no, I've made a decision. We need to get new members in. So on the 1st of May, pump's going and strength development's coming in.
I don't necessarily think that you should replace a class if it's working well. If you think about the occupancy of the room, if you've got a space that allows for 50 and you are getting at least 80 to 90% of that full, you would be probably giving your members a bit of a disservice if you were just to go, we're going to just change on its head. While they're the same program, obviously something within that class is drawing them in. And what we actually know from our research is a group fitness member will generally refer at least 3 friends. So within that room, if you want to make that room busier, you could probably first lean on the members in the room to try and get them to refer people into the class. What we know as well is that members kind of want to go with the trends as well, particularly your younger members. So something that has, and they love a bit of variety, right? So something that's sort of come to light in the last couple of years is that having a timetable that's a bit more seasonal as in we flip the programs around to suit this, the different seasons of the year, can be really beneficial for having a strong group fitness offering. If we just come back to this, and this is a case-by-case thing, right? So let's say you come to me, Tony, and you're a licensee or one of our customers, and you say to me, look, I don't know, I want to sort of attract more members to class. What do we do? We would actually put in a bit of an action plan to see if we could build that class first, because you do have a captive audience already. Then we might look at around the fringes of that, putting in a strength development workout, for example. If you want to try something different to attract different members, we might, around the fringes of that class, put a strength development workout. And this has worked really well around the world when strength development first came out, because it was a different program, and it's certainly not a replacement for body pump. It's another option that members can have, that we can, again, attract more members, because, as I've sort of mentioned the last couple of times, the biggest thing that we want to do with all this stuff, like, yes, it's a business and you want to make money from it, but at the heart of it is, how do we get more people moving? How do we get more people off the couch and into clubs? And doing something like making a violent change to a timetable you might end up with just 10 people to that class instead of a full class. So putting them around the fringes sometimes can help you assess what the appetite is like for this program, and also can attract more members into the club.
So we are competing against boutiques, yeah? We've said that straight up. I think, Dan, you were talking about it before. What do we need to do in order to compete and stay relevant, so that we're attracting those new members? If we're not changing that Monday night 5:30 class and we're keeping it the same, how do we attract new people coming in if we're not willing to change that? Dan?
Yes. So as Sam said, I think it's not so much changing a product or a class that's working really well, but how can you add value to that class? And looking at, as you said, shape, strength development, just a couple of the new limited edition collection programs that have been launched over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, it's a good opportunity to look at where can I put those classes that doesn't necessarily challenge body pump but complements it. So it might be, again, you've got if your goal, and we're working on let's assume we're working on a goal to draw a younger audience. They've probably got different, they may not be working full time, they might be at uni, they might have, so again, comes back to what I was talking about before, putting these different programs, these programs that are designed to attract the younger audience. They don't have to be at 5:30, because people, the audience that you're attracting is probably knocked off work at 4 or 4:30, or maybe they've had the day off, so they can come at 4 o'clock. This is so thinking outside the box. A 4 o'clock class, 5 years, 10 years ago, you think that would never work. Like why would we even consider that? But as people get busier, as people's, as I alluded to before, as people's working routines and cadences and days they have off, and days they're working from home, days they're working in the office changing so rapidly, suddenly a 4 or 4:30 class is a potentially viable class. But again, it's got to come back to your membership, what and your data that you've harvested, right? What is actually happening in my club at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever time slot it might be.
Matching the best gyms and studios with the best group exercise instructors. If you want to get your classes covered or want to teach more and earn more, simply let the Cover Me app do the work. No more WhatsApp groups and social media groups, no more chasing, only relevant, personalized notifications. Just check in at a club, an invoice will be automatically generated, ready for you to get paid. It takes just a couple of minutes to create a Cover Me professional profile. So, raise your profile and raise your game. Cover Me. Let's make it happen.
So really looking at our data and actually making sure we've got the right right instructors, the right time, the right of everything going on, and being willing to actually make those changes as we need to make sure we're catering for the most amount of people we can in the centre at one time.
And marketing and advertising stuff, right? Like you might look at it and say, well, I've got no one coming in at 4:00 in the afternoon, so why would I put a 4:30 or 4:15 class on?
Yep.
But if you market to the group of people you're trying to attract to come in at this time because I've got this really great program that I want you to come and try, and push that out to your existing members and out to your broader social media network, you can suddenly have, you don't know how many members or prospective members would come in if there was something on, right? So again, you don't grow a class, you don't grow a program, you don't grow a club by offering less. You've got to offer more, but it's not a build it and they will come mentality. It's a build it, promote the hell out of it, really give it every possible chance to succeed, and then be prepared to pivot, be prepared to move on if something isn't working as well as you would like it to, make some adjustments based on on what you're actually seeing happen over a period of time.
So 2 more questions I want to throw at this, and then we'll start moving to the next key as well. Sam, if I've got a timetable that's working exceptionally well, but one of my classes is not the best, so I'm going to put a brand new class on. It's a brand new program we're going to throw on the timetable. How long should I give it in order to be successful? Do I give it 6 weeks, 12 weeks? Do I give it just, a season, whatever that is these days, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it's going on? Or do I need to give it a good proper 6 months in order for it to actually really attract people and get a following in there? What's the best practice with regards to that?
Yeah, 3 to 6 months is generally what we would recommend to leave a class to try and get it to grow. But and I just use the word leave it, right? You can't just set and forget. You can't just plug a program in and expect it to work. There's a lot of moving parts around it. And that's why a lot of the things that happen within this online group fitness management course that we offer, they are broad things. And it's about how do you now marry these principles up with your timetable. So definitely 3 to 6 months, I would suggest would be sort of the minimum, but there would need to be support around that. So a great marketing strategy in the lead up to get it into place, having your instructors talk about it and your whole club talking about it so that it's like your members get a bit of FOMO, right? They don't want to miss out on this new experience. So they want to get in and get it done. And it's about supporting it along the way, making sure that your staff are still pushing these new members into the class so that you can build it and so that people make noise about it. People vote with their feet, and when they love a class, they'll tell everyone about it. Well, we hope that they'll tell everyone about it.
So Sam, I'll keep this with you. How important is the look of the timetable then? Does it need to be colourful, or does it need to be black and white? What are we looking at when we're designing the look and feel of that timetable? What do we need to look for?
Yeah, it depends on the use, I think. I know we've said depend a lot today, but it really does depend on the use of the timetable. And I've seen digital timetables that are just black and white that actually look mint. Like you look at the timetables that you're using in Les Mills, New Zealand at the moment, and they're simply just a black and white timetable with some offset colours to make sure that you know what the difference is between the time slots. But you certainly want to make sure that the look of the timetable is clean, it's easy to read, and it doesn't have, and that's why sometimes having 1,000 time slots isn't great, because if you've got 1,000 time slots, it's really hard for someone to go, well, I'm free at 5:30. Like, where am I going to put myself? So clean, easy to read, easy to follow, and making sure that it's available on all the different platforms. So it looks clean on social media. It looks good on a club board. It looks good online on your website.
Are members still grabbing stuff from the reception area? Are they still grabbing a printed out piece of paper on their way in and way out, or is that we've moved more to devices now, more to having stuff on social media? Dan?
Yeah, look, I still a bit old school in that way, and in the clubs I've been involved in, we've always had printed timetables because members do like the ability just to grab their timetable, have a look through it, stick it up on the fridge at home, and something to refer back to nice and easily without having to log in to an app or to jump online to find when the next class is. So I think it's probably a combination of both. Really, there's really no reason to not offer some printed timetables. I mean, I know we're trying to go green and all that sort of stuff, but a few printed timetables that members can grab and pin on their notice board at home or their fridge door at home is a great idea. And then obviously making sure, as Sam said, you're complementing that or you're backing that up with online. I mean, a lot of clubs have booking online now, right? You can't go to a class without booking already. So members are becoming more used to doing stuff online, booking in or checking a timetable. Yeah, but there's a group of members that just are not going to be about that. We know that, and they like the idea of piece of paper in their hand. So I think probably a combination of both is a good way to go.
Cool. Right, so we've spoken then about that key, which is play your A team, and we're looking at all of that kind of stuff. So, guys, if you are wanting more information, get in contact with the BPM that's in your area. Also, jump online to register and do the online GFM. But let's move into the next key, which is building a great stadium, which sort of follows on from what we're just talking about then about making sure something looks great with your timetable. We need to also make sure that our studios are looking great. Now, does that mean I need to go and spend $1 million, Sam?
I didn't spend anything on this. Well, this actually, to be fair, is quite a studio. That's actually the studio behind me is Auckland City. The fit out they did a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely amazing. They have an immersive cycle experience. I think they used to have 80 to 100 bikes in the studio. So, yeah, really amazing room. But you do not need to spend a lot of money to have a great looking group fitness studio. We actually had the opportunity to head to Les Mills, New Zealand at the end of last year, start of this year. And we had the opportunity to see some of the newer the newer refurbished studios, and the simplicity, but how they looked and how they felt was actually really amazing. So there's a lot of things that clubs could take from those sort of studios that they could replicate quite easily in their own studio.
This is the Group X podcast.
Yep, cool. So if we can, let's have a look at the sound system to start off with. Dan, what should clubs be looking at with a sound system? What things do they need to make sure that they are ticking boxes that are almost non-negotiables to make sure that they're doing the best they can in that space?
Yeah, and I think it's so important, right? Particularly with the Les Mills workouts, music is such a big part of the experience for a member doing a class. So there's no, if you're in any doubt, there's so many AV technicians and AV support people that can assist, a club in designing a great room. So there's so much that goes into audio. It's not something just bang up a couple of speakers and, and go from there. Like, you really do need, some acoustic checks and things like that to make sure that, the experience you're giving members is great. So, I think the keys would be, have you had an AV person to come in and design a great sound system for you? You think you go to a concert and Taylor Swift was just here. I personally didn't go, but Taylor Swift, the experience is the music, right? So, you could only imagine how many millions of dollars were spent on the audio side of providing a great experience for members. So it's that on a smaller scale in a club. So we do talk about bigger is better, but there's limitations, obviously budget limitations and stuff like that. It will sort of control how much of that, bigger is better mindset you can go. But simple things like making sure, in the case of sound system, you've got a great sound system that's tuned to the room is really critical. Your microphone or microphones are in good nick, so your instructors, are clear and audible. And then obviously keeping that sound system, it sounds silly, but it's so important, keeping that sound system really simple to operate. And I say that from bitter experience with instructors, and I can say this because I am one. Instructors are not necessarily AV or audio experts, and if there's a raft of dials on your AV or your audio rack, they will touch them. So keep it really simple. Microphone volume, music volume, maybe total output, and that's it. Don't let them play around with. Don't have heaps of knobs for bass and treble, and because you're guaranteed as soon as something doesn't quite work, that's when panic stations happen and people start to fiddle with all the different knobs that they can to try to fix it. So I think that's really something to be mindful. Make the audio great, but keep it nice and simple for the user.
Yep. So I just want to break that down a little bit more if we can. And we will, for those listening and watching, I will have the guys from Fitness Audio on later on in one of the other episodes coming up soon, where I'm just going to be sitting down talking to them about sound and lighting as well. But for this example here, speaker setup. How many speakers should we have in a room? 1, 2, 5, 10? Sam, what is there? What from the studios that you've taught in, what have you found has been the best that you've experienced in your term of teaching?
I think with any of this studio design stuff, you want to make it something that doesn't stand out in terms of something that would get in the way of the workout experience. So if you just have one speaker at the front of the room, to be able to fill that room with sound, you are going to have that speaker cranked up to probably close to the maximum volume. And if you've got 4 rows of participants, the front row is going to get absolutely rinsed with audio. They're going to be wanting to put in earplugs. They're going to hate the volume of the music, and the person at the back may actually struggle to hear, because not only does the things in the room, like walls and equipment, soak up the sound, we soak up the sound as well. So you want your audio designed in a way that allows it to flood the room, but not just from one direction. So there's a few different ways you can do that, and the Fitness Audio guys will definitely be able to give some more advice. And we certainly have an AV support team that has been heavily designing some of the best studios in Australia. If you're going for front speakers, you're going to want at least a couple of pairs to allow that sound to go from the back to the front of the room. If you're using ceiling speakers, you want to make sure that it's not just one ceiling speaker. There's enough in the room to be able to soak up the room. So some studios, you may get away with the 2 speakers at the front because you've got a shallow room, but if you've got a larger room, you're going to need to invest in more speakers. Think about do you need a subwoofer in your room just to create a bit more depth in the sound? Because you pump too much bass into your standard speakers and you end up popping them. And then when you include the microphone, you want to make sure that the microphone is clear and easily heard. There's nothing worse than when you're trying to teach and you're right in the moment and you want to say something really cool and then there's no mic there. So you want to make sure you've got a nice, reliable mic to go with that great speaker tune.
On that, Dan, how many mics should I have per studio? Do I need to just have one per studio and that's it? We're good. Flow. You know what? If Sam's top performing and it's flooded, then tough luck, Tone. You're just going to have to deal with screaming and yelling. Do I need 2? Do I need 3? What's the best practice? What would you recommend in the way of quantity of microphones per studio?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a pretty straightforward answer. You need at least a bit of redundancy, right? You've got to have, I would think, at least 2 microphones per studio, and there's a number of reasons for that. One, if you've got a team teach situation, if you've got a couple of microphones, there's no faffing around swapping microphones and belt packs and stuff from one instructor to another. And then there's obviously the secondary part of that is if you do have a failure with your initial with one of your microphones, then you've got some redundancy, you've got some backup there as well. So that would be the short answer. At least a couple of microphones, and the other things, and I'm sure the Fitness Audio guys, when you have them on, will talk about this because I've used some of their products in the past. They talk about rotating your microphone. So rather than have one main microphone that you use, just smash it day in, day out all the time, rotating through your microphones. So, you will run maybe you run a class with microphone A, then the next class you use microphone B to give them a chance to drain, to dry out, because we get sweaty. I mean, I'm a perfect example on a cycle, on a push bike, on a cycle bike. Like the things get covered in sweat. So giving them opportunity to drain and rest, I suppose, essentially before the next class. So then, if you've got a couple of microphones, you can rotate through them throughout the day.
I suppose the question that I should ask that I don't know the answer to, I've seen a bit of it on social media, but are instructors bringing their own headsets in that are compatible with mics these days? I mean, COVID's still around, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still that type of stuff. But so, Sam, you've got your own mic, have you?
Yep.
Yep.
I purchased some stuff.
How do you find that connecting up to the sound? Do you need to adjust your bass and treble every time you jump in, or are you just plugging it straight in and away you go and everything's A-okay?
Depends on the headset that you utilize, and you need to make sure that when you if you are using a different microphone, that the microphone is compatible with the headset, the belt pack in the club. So the belt pack is the little thing you put the batteries in, flicker on, and away you go. Because I've seen a number of clubs where most clubs now use like a 4-pin sort of setup, and if you try to plug a 4-pin into a 3-pin, you break pins. So it's really important to know what setup your club has, because the 4 and the 3 look exactly the same until you flip it over and you see that there's 4 holes versus 3. What I find is if I use, there's 2 mics that I have a Shure mic and I have an E mic. So if I use the Shure mic, it's a little bit more sensitive to down low, but it's not quite as loud. So if I plug in the E mic and use the same settings, it squeals a bit. So I certainly don't play with treble or bass, anything like that. I try and marry the microphone I've got with the club setup, because that's tuned for a particular microphone.
Are there certain things that clubs should avoid when setting up sound system type stuff? I mean, do you want to put speakers in every single corner? Do you want to just put them at the front of the room and none at the back, or do you want them at the back and not at the front? Hide the speakers. Is there stuff like that you guys could recommend? Dan, what is there sort of some basics for, I'm brand new, I don't have the money to actually get an AV going in, but we've got a sound system. Where should I place it?
Well, wherever your member's going to get the best experience, right? As Sam talked about, if you've got one speaker at the front, it's probably not going to be a great experience for members. I mean, again, if that's all your budget permits, or that's what the system is, obviously having it mounted as high as you possibly can. So rather than just, as Sam used the term, rinsing your front row, you can at least get the sound up and over the top of the front row, so it is a little bit more penetrative, if that's a word, to the back of the room. So again, a lot of it comes down to budget. What can you afford? What budget constraints have you got? But understanding how it all works. Like again, you don't have to be an expert to understand what good sound sounds like. So go in there and test it yourself, and have a bit of even if you can't make any significant changes right now, whether that's audio equipment, video equipment, new weights equipment or new bikes, even if you can't make any immediate changes, understanding what you've got and how to maximize what you've got currently, but also setting a plan, setting like a 3-year goal. Okay, I'm not necessarily happy with A, B, or C right at the minute. I don't have budget to do something right now, but in 12 months time, maybe we can put some new equipment in. Maybe we can put buy some new microphones, which again a better experience for members and for instructors. So there's lots of little stuff you can do right now, but I think you've got to get in the room and understand each room. So I've spoken to club GFMs or club managers that perhaps don't really love the cycle studio, as an example. So they don't go in there as a participant, and they don't really know what's going on. You've got to know what's going on, even if you don't ride regularly, or that room is not for you for whatever reason. You've got to understand what's going on in each of those rooms and where the improvements can be made. And talking to your instructors is another really, really good one, because they'll always have some ideas on ways that can be improved, things can be improved too. So just making sure you're having those conversations, you're familiar with the rooms, you understand at least the basics of an audio system and what to look for. Those are probably some things that cost nothing and can make significant inroads into decision making down the track as well.
Yep. Sam, let me ask you this one: stage or no stage?
Depends on the setup of the room. I think it's important that your members can see the instructor from head to toe, even in a cycle class. If you have a tiered cycle studio, so that's a setup that a lot of clubs tend to use these days that I've seen, you may not need a stage because of the way the room's set up. Everyone's going to be able to see the instructor. I think it's not necessarily stage or no stage. It's about what can your members actually see your instructor from top to bottom, so they can get the best experience from a learning experience, because we know a lot of participants are visual learners. So it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you coach sometimes to make it click. It's about seeing that in action. That's how they learn best.
So, okay, then let me ask you this, Dan. Mirrors or no mirrors?
That's the age-old question. And we sound like we've been really vague on some of these today, but mirrors are a little bit old school, but some members absolutely love them. So I'm going to do a bit of a politician thing here and say, understand your members.
Yep.
If you know what your members want and they all screaming about having mirrors, let them have mirrors. Like, there's really no reason why you wouldn't do it. It also can help create a sense of extra space in the room too. So it can have that added impact. But again, if you look at and Sam touched on it before, the clubs in New Zealand, which we base a lot of our advice around what success they're having in their studios. I'm just thinking there wasn't a single studio I walked into there that had mirrors. I'm not saying generic. That's a very sweeping statement. I'm not saying there's no Les Mills clubs that have mirrors, but off the top of my head, certainly the ones we walked into, they didn't. There was no mirrors present. So again, it probably depends. If you're a new club, and have you got the ability to start from scratch, I would probably say don't put mirrors in.
Yep.
But again, it really, really does depend on the member and what they want.
I think the only time that I've seen mirrors in studios lately is when the studio is small and the mirror has been put in, as you touched on then, to make that room feel a bit bigger. I don't think there's any reason to put mirrors in a cycle studio. I mean, you're sitting there pedaling. You don't really need to. There's no form you need to worry about. You are pedaling. Yeah, it's not like you've got to watch to make sure that your back's straight or posture and all that kind of stuff. If it's there to actually create more space and more atmosphere in the room, 100% go for it. But it's not a teaching tool, as in, making sure that in pump, as an example, you might want to have mirrors to the side of you to make sure that you can just check on your technique every so often. But I think it's something that I would say, and probably agreeing with what Les Mills have done, get rid of them if you've got them in your room. You don't need them. Your members may kick up a stick at first, but I'm sure they'll get over it like anything. As long as it's delivered and communicated properly around why we're doing what we're doing, they're going to see the benefits in doing that. On that then, storage for equipment. Let's go to the main studio, and we've got all this pump equipment. Where should I store that equipment? At the front of the room, at the back of the room, right near the door, either side of the stage? Sam, can I throw that one to you? Being a trainer and being in studio a fair bit, what are you seeing out there? And I suppose what is best advice with that?
You have to remember that in your classes, you're going to have, if your capacity is 50, you're going to have up to 50 people in that room. So you can imagine, just like the shower situation you had where there were only 12 showers, you got all your storage racks in one area, that could potentially become a bit of an OH&S hazard, and also a bit of a time waster when it comes to getting equipment in and out. When it's your peak times, you'll generally have 2 or 3 classes on the timetable with potentially 5 to 10 minute gaps. If most of that gap is taken away with people packing up equipment or setting up equipment, it does chew into your time quite a bit. So having a variety of ways that people can put their equipment away is important. Some clubs are choosing to have storage areas where you can actually go into a side room and pop your stuff in there. But again, you want to make sure it's not going to become a bottleneck. So the clubs that do it really well have had an entry point and an exit point, and had a really clear strategy to get in and out of that storage room so that it can be as efficient as possible to put that equipment in away and get it out. So yeah, have multiple areas if possible. You know, the front of the room, the back of the room, the side of the room, wherever members are going to go, and make sure
So they can
that if you
disperse.
use it,
Yeah.
and make sure if you use a storage area that it's got a clear in and out, so that way you're not creating a hazard. You know, members smashing into each other, or that sounds really messy, but members bumping into each other, or you know.
No, it's
like
true.
that.
It's true. It's the. Yeah, it may sound weird when you say it, but it's so true. You know, if someone's got a pump bar and they've got all their weight still on, they're walking out of the room, you don't want someone bashing into somebody else as they're trying to get past. You need to be able to do it so it's safe and effective for everyone. So totally agree with you. Spreading it out, and if you, as you're saying, if you do have a room that is set up just for equipment, make it clear you're walking this way, guys. You walk out that way, so no one's getting injured at all. On that, then, floor coverings. Dan, what do we put on the floor of the studios these days? You know, is it still the old Regapol stuff? Is it timber flooring? Is it carpet? Not shag pile, obviously, but, you know, what are we putting on the floor of studios?
Yeah, it's another one. Really depends on the club and what you're teaching in there too, right? The club that I was working at managing for a little while had a carpet, a very short pile carpet floor in the group fitness studio. Now, a lot of people turn their nose up at carpet and think, "Oh, yuck, that's not very nice." I mean, we had a really strong cleaning regime, though. The thing was dry cleaned every week, you know. So I think, again, depending on the programming you're offering in there, the likelihood of lots of sweating happening and what your cleaning regime looks like will lead you down a path of what the right product is. Obviously, if you've got hardwood, or perhaps not hardwood floors, but laminated floors or firmer floors that aren't carpeted, being mindful that if people are getting up and down, they're doing stuff on their knees or arms or whatever it might be, make sure you've got some mats, or you're encouraging them to bring their own mats to classes, so it's as comfortable as the class can be for them. So just thinking about what programs you're running in each class, and then what the expectation of members might be, from a comfort point of view too, and making sure you're ticking those boxes.
Sam, you mentioned that you're over in Les Mills seeing some of those gyms over there. What do they have in their studios, in the ones that you looked at? I mean, is it carpet? Is it rubber flooring? Is it timber? What are they using at the moment, I suppose, as one of the leading chains that are out there? What are they using?
Most of them had, and Dan can correct me on this if he needs to, I think most of them had carpet. They had a special, it seemed like a full purpose carpet in those spaces. To be honest, and I know we're saying a lot depends, it really does. I think a lot of this stuff really does depend on your studio. So there are going to be a number of factors that influence what you choose. Some clubs are built and they're above an office. So you need to make sure that the flooring, for example, is in such a way that it's not going to disturb the people in the office below, because there's, you could be like, look, I'm just going to put carpet because I think that's the right thing to do. But without the right advice, you could end up spending a lot more than the amount that you spend on getting a professional in just to give you some advice on exactly what to put in. Same with the sound system. You might go and buy the sort of cheapest or most entry-level sound system as possible, but imagine the pain of the members' experience in the room if you can't get it tuned right, or it's not compatible with the actual setup of the room. The amount of money you're going to spend fixing that is going to well and truly outweigh the amount of money you could have just saved by getting the right advice from the right people. And we can certainly, I think between the three of us, would certainly have someone we could push you in the right direction of to give you that advice for sure.
On that, I think as well, there's AV guys and there's AV guys, and I say this with all respect to all AV guys. Some guys understand the fitness industry and understand the powers that we need, or the power and push we need from speakers in that space. Others don't. Others are just a hi-fi end. So to anyone that's listening and watching, make sure you do some research to make sure that the person you're getting in has dealt with fitness spaces before, because there are some experts out there and there are some that probably wouldn't have too much of a clue. That's going to sell you something that go, yeah, this will work. And next thing you know, you run some C-bus system that doesn't work or doesn't do anything for you that you want it to do in that space. And on flooring as well, same thing. do some research. If you're setting up a brand new facility, go and have a look at what other clubs are doing. Do your research. You're going to be doing it anyway. So suss things out like that. Suss out their flooring. Is it timber? Is it cement? Is it does it need to be rubbered flooring in a cycle studio, or can it just be the cement so it's easier to mop up after the sweat happens? That kind of stuff. There's so many different things that we should be looking at in that space. But as we've said it time and time again throughout the last couple of keys that we've run through, to find out more and get more in-depth detail, guys, jump onto the online GFM or get in contact with the guys at Les Mills here that are going to be able to help you and give you more detail with all of that kind of stuff. Last thing I wanted to throw at both of you, and it's going to be a race to see who answers this, because I'm not going to say, go and answer this one. Should I have a backup sound system? And if so, what sort of backup sound system should I have?
I'll jump in here. Yes, ideally you will have a backup system. You're obviously not going to have. It's not like a microphone where the cost of having a second or third microphone as redundancy is relatively inexpensive. I say relatively because they're not inexpensive, but the cost might be a few $100 to $1,000 for a good second or third mic. You're obviously not going to spend another XYZ on having a whole secondary sound system that's at the same level as your first one. I mean, I look back again at clubs I've been involved with that you can get quite reasonably priced and quite decent size and good sound quality speakers that sit on a tripod. So again, if for some reason you have an outage or there's some sort of an issue with your existing system, you want something that you can fall back on that's going to provide A level for members. I mean, the worst thing you could do in that situation is not be able to run a class because you've got nothing available. Yep. And members are pretty understanding too, right? That if you plonked a tripod and just a basic speaker there and said that's my sound system day in day out, they're probably not going to be very satisfied with that. But if they can see that this is a backup, this is an emergency, we've had an issue with the existing system, but we're still able to run the class because we've got a redundancy, something built in, members will understand that, okay, it's not going to be the best sound experience that we've ever had, but we appreciate that the club is doing their best to run, to yep. still be able to run the class. So I think that's really important. Can you run a class if you do have a failure of your sound system? And if not, what's your backup? What's your plan to do that other than just cancel the class and say bad luck? Yep. And the other thing I'd say to your point earlier, compare yourself with the competition. It's a really good place to start with this journey, so that we've thrown a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas at what you should be looking at, what you could do differently or what you could change. Just look at your competition in the area, go and participate in a class at the club down the road or the boutique, and where do you feel your club or your room fits if you compare it, and be really open and honest. You might say I've got the best club room in the world, and that's fantastic, but be really honest with that. Is it something that you could take a photo of and put on Instagram and you're going to get 1 million likes or 1 million emojis or whatever it is that you do on Instagram? Like, is it going to create excitement and people wanting to go into that room? And if it's not, what are some of the strategies you can put in place to create a better feel in that room?
Sam, have you got anything to add to that before we wrap up this one on both topics that we've spoken about today?
I just think ultimately, for anyone who's got any questions about any of the things that we've covered today, if you're unsure about how to play your A team, if you're unsure how to put together that great timetable that's going to attract new members, if you're not 100% sure about the way you should design your studio, please reach out to us. We do this day in, day out, and if we can't answer questions, we will certainly be able to push you, give you the right person to speak to. So ask@lesmills.com.au. If you want to send us an email, it'll be sent out to the right person in your area, and we'll be able to give you the support that you need so your club can be successful.
Brilliant. Boys, thank you so much for coming in and covering off both those keys for us. We have another 2 to go still next week, so I look forward to having you back in the studio again to discuss those 2. But as the boys have both alluded to here, guys, if you need help, reach out. Yeah, that's why we're here. We're happy to help in any way we can. Boys, I'll see you next week.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony.